You're standing over a mass grave in London, and the year is 1348. Beneath you, more than 2,000 bodies lie stacked in careful rows, buried within a single terrible year, at a site called East Smithfield. The disease that put them there doesn't look like sickness at first. It looks like fatigue, then a headache, then swellings the size of a hen's egg rising under your arms and along your neck. By the third day, close to half the people infected around you are already dead. There is no hospital. No pharmacy 3 blocks away, just the sound of carts collecting bodies before nightfall. Right now, if you felt that first ache in your throat, you'd swallow a pill. Or just wait it out with tea and something streaming in the background. You've never had to watch a swelling grow under your own arm and wonder if it means you have a week left, or a day. You've never had to bury someone and then go back to work the same afternoon, because there was no one left to do it for you. So how did anyone survive this? Not just the Black Death, but the hundreds of thousands of years of plagues, parasites, and infections that came before it. No antibiotics, no vaccines, no idea what a virus even was. Part of the answer starts almost 50,000 years before London existed. In 2016, geneticists Michael Dannemann and Janet Kelso at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany, scanned modern human genomes for regions that looked unusually similar to Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA. They traced 3 specific immune genes in living humans back to that surprising source. These weren't minor contributions. The genes belong to a family called toll-like receptors, and they still make up 1 to 6% of your genome if you have European or Asian ancestry. They control how fast your immune system notices a pathogen has arrived, which is the difference, biologically speaking, between a cold and a coffin. Modern humans leaving Africa had never met the diseases already waiting in Europe and Asia. Interbreeding with populations who'd survived those diseases for hundreds of thousands of years worked like a shortcut, borrowing someone else's immune homework instead of evolving the answers from scratch. The genes spread so quickly through the population that Kelso's team could still trace their fingerprints 60,000 years later in you. So that explains the ancient immune system. But what happened once an infection actually took hold? In January 2016, microbiologist Frank Maxner at the Institute for Mummies and the Iceman in Bolzano, Italy, led a team that sequenced something unexpected from the stomach contents of Ötzi, the 5,300-year-old glacier mummy found frozen in the Alps. A full genome of Helicobacter pylori, the bacterium behind most stomach ulcers today. It infects roughly half of everyone alive right now. Ötzi had been carrying it for over 5,000 years, and his particular strain traced back to Central Asia, a genetic fingerprint of migration that no stone tool could have shown. His body hadn't beaten the infection. It had learned to live inside it. The same low-grade truce still playing out in half the humans on the planet today, including, possibly, you. Everyone assumes ancient people were constantly losing a war against disease. The truth is closer to a stalemate. Most infections in prehistory weren't fast killers. They were permanent roommates, carried for a lifetime, mild enough on most days that survival didn't require defeating them. It just required not making them angry. But coexistence only gets you so far. What happened when the body needed actual repair? A wound, an injury, something no truce could fix. In September 2022, archaeologist Tim Maloney of Griffith University in Australia published findings from a cave called Liang Tibo on the island of Borneo, the skeleton of a young adult, missing the lower part of one leg. Radiocarbon dating placed the amputation at roughly 31,000 years old, performed on someone who was likely still a child. The bone had healed clean, with no trace of infection, meaning this person survived the operation and lived another 6 to 9 years afterward, walking, moving, being cared for by people who had every reason to leave them behind. That one detail rewrote the timeline of medicine itself. It pushed the earliest known evidence of successful surgery back by 24,000 years, past anything researchers thought a hunter-gatherer society was capable of. Somebody in that cave understood anatomy well enough to cut through muscle, vein, and nerve without killing their patient, and knew how to keep a tropical wound clean long enough for it to close, in a climate where infections usually win. So genes explained some of it, tolerance explained more, surgery explained even more than that. But none of it explains the single deadliest disease event in your ancestors' history, and what it did to their DNA. That grave from the opening is real. It's the East Smithfield burial ground, and in 2022, evolutionary geneticist Hendrik Poinar at McMaster University, working with researchers at the University of Chicago and the Institut Pasteur, sequenced DNA from more than 500 skeletons buried in London and Denmark before, during, and after the Black Death. They found something in the survivors that wasn't in the dead, a functional copy of a gene called ERAP2, which helps immune cells recognize the plague bacterium and destroy it before it spreads through the bloodstream. People carrying the working version of that gene were 40 to 50% more likely to survive than people without it. It's the strongest single evolutionary advantage ever measured in humans, stronger than lactose tolerance, stronger than anything documented before it. In the space of a few decades, one plague reshaped the genetic code of an entire continent, and it did it the way evolution always does, not gently and not by asking permission. Everyone assumes a protective mutation like that is a pure win, no downside. It isn't. The same ERAP2 variant that saved people from the plague is now linked to a higher risk of autoimmune diseases like Crohn's disease, a shield built in 1348 that's still misfiring 7 centuries later against a threat that no longer exists anywhere on Earth. So which of these was the real weapon? The borrowed genes, the tolerance, the surgery, or the plague-forged mutation? None of them. Alone, ancient humans didn't survive disease with one solution. They survived it the way a body survives anything, redundantly, with overlapping systems that failed at different rates and covered for each other. A gene from a Neanderthal might fail. A truce with a bacterium might hold for decades and collapse overnight. A surgery might work once and never again. Even a plague-forged mutation only helps the generation lucky enough to carry it. What actually carried a population through 300,000 years of pathogens wasn't a single trick. It was that they kept trying more than one at a time, refused to leave each other behind when the odds turned bad, and kept caring for each other long enough for the slow solutions, evolution among them, to catch up. Go back to that grave in London. Somewhere in those 2,000 bodies is a person who didn't have the right version of ERAP2. Somewhere near them is a survivor who did, purely by chance, carrying a mutation they never asked for and would never live long enough to understand. You are most likely descended from someone who won that lottery. Not the strongest person buried at East Smithfield, not the smartest, just the one whose cells happened to recognize a threat a little faster than everyone else's. In a century when a little faster was the only advantage that mattered. You didn't inherit immunity. You inherited debt, paid off by people who never got the chance to spend the years they bought you.